Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you taking time to join us today. We're really looking forward to talking through the opportunities that present themselves when you're thinking about improving your financial management function and how the right accounting foundation and complementary tools can help you do that. I'm Bruce Belvin, founder and president at OneDataSource, and I'm joined today by a good friend, Andrew Lester, who is founder and CEO of Tablespoon. I'll allow Andrew to introduce himself and his company in just a moment once I cover a couple of housekeeping items. First, with respect to everybody's time, we'll stay around 25 minutes in the presentation and make sure that we have time for live Q&A at the end. And we do encourage you to ask any questions that you may have in the chat. We'll address those. We want you to walk away with as much value as possible. Should you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to mine or Andrew's emails directly. Today, we'll be covering the real impact of a foundational financial management system and accounting system for our multi-unit operators. Andy will share a number of the areas where customers are realizing significant benefits with Intact, as well as talking about the specific advantages of a modern cloud ERP. We'll also focus on the integration opportunities that Sage Intacct presents and identify some of the mission critical integrations for your business. We also want to clarify the what's next. Once you have Sage Intacct and you've identified key integrations, but now what can you do with these tools to propel your organization toward greater efficiency, decision making, and bottom line improvements? Then finally, we'll close by answering your questions. Again, feel free to ask any questions you may have in the chat below. Before passing it over to Andy, a couple of quick notes about who OneDataSource is. We've been supporting multi-unit, multi-brand franchise operators for about 20 years. We support over 11,000 units in the restaurant vertical. That's almost 50 brands and over 10 billion in revenue between those companies. Andy, I'll pass it over to you now.
Great. Thank you again, Bruce, for the opportunity to join you today. And everyone, thank you all for your time and participation today as well. Just a quick introduction. My name is Andrew Lester. I am the founder and CEO of Tablespoon. Just a little background. I am a CPA. I've got about 20 years of experience in public accounting and accounting software applications. I've worked primarily with clients in the restaurant industry over the course of my career. And then just a brief introduction to Tablespoon and who we are as an organization. We specialize in helping restaurant groups transform their accounting and financial management through a combination of top shelf technology and our team's expertise in the unique needs of the restaurant industry. We are a Sage business partner and have over a decade of experience working with and implementing Sage Intacct. And we are the leading Sage Intacct reseller specializing in the restaurant industry. Now, for anyone joining today who either is not already using Sage Intacct or who might be starting the process of evaluating a new system, I want to take just a few minutes to just quickly introduce what is Sage Intacct and just talk at a kind of a high level about some of the benefits that our clients who have made this switch have started to see. And when we first meet with a prospective client, the first thing we really do is dive into all of their different financial processes to understand where are the biggest challenges, really understand where Sage Intacct can help. And the groups that we speak with are often facing very similar challenges. Perhaps those of you who are evaluating or maybe have just recently made the switch might relate to some of these. Lack of visibility and insights, operators and leadership not able to access the data and reporting that they need to make timely and strategic decisions. Outdated software, disconnected systems. So this is also very common, continuing to rely on old, outdated on-premise software, isn't in the cloud, doesn't connect to other systems, and is very difficult to integrate. And that, of course, leads to manual and inefficient processes. So day-to-day accounting tasks like paying vendors, auditing cash and sales, period end reporting, in these outdated systems are very time consuming and manual, and folks really want these things to be automated. And another theme we hear a lot too is the accounting teams working in these systems they're overwhelmed. Restaurants are growing again, and each new restaurant that opens, of course, means more accounting work and more pain from dealing with these outdated systems and inefficient processes. So we hear a lot of times when talking with groups, we're struggling to close the books on time. Closing is taking longer and longer. We're just trying to keep up. Or another theme we've heard a lot recently too is we're working with an outsource provider who is dealing with these same challenges and not able to get us the information we need, struggling to meet deadlines because the systems aren't automated. So, how does Tablespoon help our clients overcome these challenges? Simply put, we help restaurant groups level up from basic bookkeeping and outdated systems to transform into future ready restaurant finance. So we show companies how to take advantage of a solution and that true best in class tech stack that shows real value with outcomes that are a result of having automated processes that drive very clear and measurable results. Just a couple of quick examples. A franchisee that was able to cut the time to close their books by 50%. They're able to create custom reports, providing a deeper level of insight 5 times faster than before. And with all of this time savings, they were able to open 4 new stores and expand into a different brand, all without adding any headcount in their accounting. Another franchisee was able to eliminate much of their manual data manipulation, manual imports, manual data entry, saving over 36 hours per month, cross reconciliations, AP, and accounting processes. Finally, a franchisee was able to streamline their accounting workflows, go paperless, cut their close time by 25%. And this is really huge. By giving their operators access to real-time financial dashboards, they were able to improve store profitability, scale over 134%, also without adding any staff in the accounting department. What do all of these franchisees have in common? Each of these groups has implemented Sage Intacct. For those who are maybe not familiar with Sage Intacct, just a very quick introduction. Sage Intacct is a modern native cloud accounting solution with open APIs to help you maximize productivity by connecting with other best-in-class systems for restaurant management, inventory, payroll, and more. Sage Intacct provides intuitive AI-powered core accounting with a dimensional general ledger, providing continuous consolidation across brands, across districts, across entities, with full drill down into the details, along with easy-to-use reporting, dashboards, workflow automation, and the ability to easily manage complex entity structures. Now, as I mentioned, Sage Intacct is a native cloud solution. And unlike other accounting software, Intacct has been cloud-based since its original launch over 20 years ago. And being in the cloud means that anyone in the organization can have access to the information they need when they need it. All you need is a web browser and an internet connection. A district manager can review her P&Ls from the field, while the CFO is using Sage Intacct's dynamic financial dashboards for a board presentation. And at the core of Sage Intacct is a powerful, flexible general ledger supercharged with AI to help automate accounting transactions. Sage Intacct offers all of the core features you need to manage your finances, including accounts payable, cash management, sophisticated reporting capabilities, and a fresh and modern user interface while providing that big time savings and a product that accountants love to use. But we don't stop at core financials. So with additional modules available for more complex business requirements, native multi-entity capabilities that allow you to easily manage multiple brands, multiple concepts, as well as non-restaurant businesses, real estate holding companies, or even completely different types of businesses that you may have under your portfolio. Sage Intacct is that powerful, best-in-class cloud platform that will power your business today and into the future. Now, Sage Intacct also has over 400 marketplace partners who offer rigorously tested and certified connectors to their respective solutions. These direct connections eliminate the need for manual data entry and relying on Excel for importing and exporting the data that needs to move between systems. And among the marketplace partners are industry-leading vendors like Proliant, who provide a state-of-the-art payroll and employee management platform that's fully integrated with Sage Intacct, as well as corporate card and expense management solutions such as Ramp, Concur. There are others, solutions that can help automate and manage your financial close like Flowcast, Blackline. There are also a number of restaurant industry-specific solutions, including, of course, OneDataSource, and we'll be talking more about those integrations with oneVIEW and onePAY in just a moment. But ultimately, I think the point here is that with these pre-built integrations, you gain the flexibility to choose the systems that work best for the different areas of your business. And really, that flexibility is very important as technology adoption continues to accelerate in the restaurant industry. A lot of the brands that we work with have various tech initiatives underway, new systems that are rolling out. Certainly all seen this over the last 4 or 5 years, navigating through the pandemic, just the number of different sources of information that affect store level performance, that affect our financials, that affect the success of the business is only increasing. And so the ability to have that flexibility and the right tech stack with the right connections and connectors is really key. And so with that, Bruce, I'm going to pass it back to you to delve into some more details around the integrations with OneVIEW and OnePay.
As Andy just showed an illustrative version of Sage Intacct Connected World, I want to share some benefits of the One Data Source solutions in relation to your foundational financial management and accounting system. And so in the diagram here, you see the two platforms, OneView and OnePay. OneView is the hub for many disparate types of data that you use in operating your restaurant company day to day, from point of sale and back of house to your banks, credit card processors, voice of the customer, third party delivery vendors. We're collecting all this data and centralizing it in one view and making it available to any system that you need. Specific to Sage Intacct, keep in mind that not just the financial data can be imported into Sage Intacct, but also statistical data to allow you to build and review key performance indicators that you're working on for your company. And then OnePay, bring in the AP automation, vendor invoices, and being able to provide control and visibility around those. And so one of the key elements in what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with companies scaling, either in growing among one brand or bringing in multiple brands, is that you need to have standardization to build that scale on. And in standardization, really to put it very simply, we're just bringing all the tribal knowledge that have been built in your companies over time into the applications as you scale. You're training new team members if you need them, or replacing team members who may retire or move on. All of that tribal knowledge is in the applications, and the training and implementation time for new staff is much quicker. And then also across the brands so that everything's being looked at apples to apples as much as possible. And then Andy mentioned it with having the daily data integrations into Intacct, you're able to have incremental steps to close all through the period, reviewing various financial data, bank data, credit card data, third party delivery data. All of that can be done incrementally throughout the period. So at the end of the period, it's a very quick process to finalize. Automating, for example, in OnePay, using process automation to identify invoices that are recurring and don't need the level of scrutiny that others would. For example, landscape. Have two landscaping invoices every month. They're going to be between $75 and $100 every month. As long as those are meeting your contracted terms for your landscaper, those don't need to be touched. For example, they can be straight through processed right into the ERP system and ready for payment when you do your payment runs. So 60% time savings in reconciling stores we've seen in the OneView side, with the ability to have that centralized data and really streamlined workflow. And you save a significant amount of time versus traditional time consuming manual manipulation, spreadsheets, moving paper. Automated credit card reconciliation, a similarly mundane process that can easily be handled through OneView, as well as the third party delivery reconciliation. And then access to data in an organized, user friendly manner, comprehensive data strategy insight to really make decisions through the period and try to be more proactive instead of reactive. So that's the bulk of what Andy and I want to talk about today. And now we'd like to take some time to answer questions. I see that we already have one in the Q&A. It says, will Tablespoon, Sage Intacct, and ODS grow with me as I open new locations, or will I outgrow the solutions? I'll give a quick answer from my side and then let Andy add to it. And the answer is yes, we definitely grow with you as you open new locations or acquire in other brands, even other verticals. And so, no, you won't outgrow these solutions. On OneDataSource for OnePay, our client base ranges from 10 or 12 locations on the lower end up to well over 1,000 on the high end. So I think we'll be able to cover you through all of your growth. Andy, would you like to make a few comments on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a Tablespoon Sage Intacct perspective, Sage Intacct is also a scalable solution. So it's a great solution to grow into when you're in early stages, perhaps outgrowing an entry-level system like QuickBooks. And then modern cloud architecture will scale up to really very large sizes. Within the Tablespoon client base, our largest client has nearly 600 stores on Sage Intacct across, I believe, 7 brands. So the ability to scale up into the hundreds and even the thousands of locations. Sage Intacct, of course, is not a restaurant-only ERP system. It happens to be a great ERP solution for a variety of other industries, and there are some very large multinational public companies that run Sage Intacct. So no concern about outgrowing the system.
Thanks, Andy. So another question here. What similarities have you seen among successful operators who've implemented Intact in terms of how they think about and approach technology transformation?
So a couple of things. One is a desire to really be able to streamline how and improve how the accounting and finance function is working within the business. That's probably a really big thing. So sometimes that desire or that need to change can be external reason, like a new acquisition or something that's coming on that sort of forces the issue. But we're really seeing more people understand that technology really can help make our lives and our jobs easier, right? So the ability to, for example, for an accounting department to not have to work late nights and weekends just to get the books closed and get some of their lives back, that starts to become a really powerful motivator to start to look at adopting some of these solutions. Then, of course, there's the cost savings and the return on investment in terms of driving those efficiencies and how that can start to lower costs. So I think in terms of what can drive that change, that's a big area. The other comment that I would make is when I think about some of the clients that we've implemented onto Sage Intacct and the attributes that are the most successful clients share, one of the big ones is a desire to bring more numbers and more visibility into financial performance to the stores and down into the store level. The younger generation, of course, is more tech savvy. They're maybe not as comfortable in Excel and spreadsheets, and they want to look at things on their phones. And some of the most fulfilling and exciting parts of these implementations for our team is when our clients do go roll out these dashboards and they can share all of this robust financial information with their operators and really empowering them to really understand their numbers and making it easy to do that. And that, of course, pays lots and lots of dividends back into the business in terms of helping to drive better performance. So those are just a couple things that come to mind.
And I'll add one other thing to that. The companies who seem to be most successful with these transitions from a legacy ERP to Intact and the OneDataSource products, also in the decision making process, the decision makers are getting the teams that will be affected by changes in these decisions involved earlier to create some buy-in, make sure they understand what the vision is. And typically they build into their team, they find a champion for whether it's OnePay or OneVIEW, Intact, whatever. They tend to develop a champion of the project and have them really lead and set examples for that. So it's really critical making sure the teams that'll be affected are involved early so they embrace the transformation instead of seeing it as a kind of a disruption to their day to day. Got another question in. We're currently migrating our payroll to Paycor. Does Sage Intacct have integrations with Paycor?
Offhand, I'm not actually 100% sure. Just as a general answer to that question, in this example, Paycor has written or developed that interface, and there are a number of payroll HRS platforms that have pretty much every payroll system. I'm sure, including Paycor. If there's not a direct API based automation, there will be the ability to import data through Excel or CSV files. Again, not fully automated, but from a Sage Intacct perspective, the capability is definitely there. And I think that also speaks to the benefit of working with companies that have done that development and really have those pre-configured integrations, because those are very easy to configure and enable. It's just turn it on and it basically works.
Through OneVIEW, we're typically pushing the payroll data, time clock, punch records to Paycor or other payroll vendors. And then we can also push labor data through the statistic imports into Intact. And then you're pulling back in the payroll data from the payroll vendor into Intact. So it's a pretty easy process, as Andy mentioned, and having a complete flow from time clock to payroll vendor, some pre-processed data available through OneVIEW, and then the final payroll data back into Intact is a pretty easy process for really for any of the payroll vendors. Hopefully that's helpful there. Another question, Andy, how does this technology help combat turnover or reduce the need to add headcount. I mentioned the transfer of tribal knowledge, especially when accounting staff has turnover. But what we've seen in customers who have automation that OneVIEW and onePAY and Intacct can bring, we see 75 to 80 restaurants per staff accountant as standard. We've certainly seen better, and we've obviously seen worse. So you can definitely look at some pretty aggressive goals, from what we've experienced. Andy, what have you seen? What would you like to add to that?
I would echo that. And I know I mentioned a moment ago some of the benefits on the operations side, but specific to the accounting departments, accounting teams, yeah, turnovers has been a challenge. We certainly see this and experience this with a lot of our clients historically. And having technology that does more of the work for you, greater automations, it helps address and ease that workload. That's increasingly what the most talented accountants want. They don't want to do data entry and manual file imports as their job. Being able to work with the information, more analysis, being able to help impact the actual business is a great opportunity to be able to offer someone joining your organization. And technology is a great way to help drive that. We have also seen, to Bruce's comment, similar sort of efficiency gains. So being able to manage more stores, being able to add stores without adding headcount, that is very common and another great benefit of making this investment.
I recall a conversation with one of our customers and their intact implementation, and one of the staff accountants said that what's been great is that they have stable work days, and I didn't know what that meant, so I asked for clarification, and they said depending on what day of week it is, what week of the period, I know what I'm going to be doing every day, and I'm not afraid of walking in and having fire drills at the end of the period, because now all of a sudden I'm finding out there was an issue with the store or some problem that they only became aware of with their manual processes at the end of the month. One do an intact because of seeing all the incremental data on a daily basis. They know what their hurdles are going to be to get closed. They're able to deal with them sooner. And so they just never have the fire drills that they ran through periodically in the past. So that was a big contributor that they like, in the job change, is just the comfort around knowing exactly what's going to happen from a day-to-day basis. And I think that's a big deal in restaurant vertical, as we all know, things that can happen and challenges that can pop up out of nowhere. So that seemed to be a really huge win. What levels of the organization are typically exposed to Intact? So I guess we're asking area managers, store managers, who typically has access to Intact in an implementation.
We are definitely big advocates and proponents of bringing operations in the field into Sage Intacct. Now, at what level and how much information is exposed, that will vary from company to company. But we have seen this just time and time again, the benefit and the value having access to this system. One of the things that we really emphasize in implementation is the manner in which we create these dashboards and think about rolling them out, trying to make the technology very user friendly so that this doesn't feel like another system or another software that people have to learn. It's just they can log in, they get exactly what they need, what you all would want them to be able to see and do. But the benefits of having really anywhere, anytime access to that information, they can drill down, they can look at the details. It helps the operators, of course. It also helps the accounting side because it tends to cut down on a lot of the questions and a lot of the back and forth between accounting and the field about just trying to understand P&Ls and what's right and what's not right, bringing everybody into the same system, the same sort of source of truth for P&L data. Again, I'll echo something I said a moment ago, thinking about our clients who have really focused in this area, they have seen the most benefits and generally the strongest performance by really investing the time to use this technology to help coach their operators on understanding their numbers and how to work with the information to help meet the initiatives and the goals of the organization. And that's really important. And that's very hard to do when you're trying to tell people, here's a spreadsheet with 2,000 rows in it, go figure it out.
Good. So another question, Andy. We're looking at several accounting systems, Sage, Microsoft, NetSuite. What questions do we need to be asking, or what should we be paying attention to specific to restaurant operations?
That's a great question. From a reporting perspective, the ease of use of the reporting and the capability of the reporting to manage the unique needs of the restaurant industry is really important. So, for example, with our mid-sized to larger clientele, where we have more complex operational structures with different districts and alignments and things like that. These alignments are constantly changing as the organization evolves and the teams change. And so being able to have the agility and the flexibility to accommodate how store level reporting needs to work in a way that doesn't lead you back into workaround land. And all of a sudden we're living in Excel again because the system can't manage what we need. I think the unique needs of the reporting of the restaurant industry is really critical. And then I think also the ability to manage changes in your business structure as you grow, as you consider your longer term strategic plans, making sure that the system that you select is going to have the ability to grow with you, not just from like a technology or transaction perspective, but just from an agility perspective of being able to support different types of businesses. And then I think the last thing is, and this is just general to really any software investment, really make sure you understand the pricing model because every software vendor will have a different model. Sage Intacct has one way that they think about pricing. It's very transparent. So it's very easy to understand. Here's where we are today. Here's where things can grow. Not every vendor is as transparent. So it's very important to understand what are you signing up for from a pricing standpoint? What happens if my business changes? What happens if we do an acquisition? What does that do to that investment?
Thanks, Andy. And then actually someone sent in the same question for OneView. How far down the org chart is OneView exposed to operators? What are the benefits you've seen from standardized content rich reporting? The majority of OneView users start with the area coaches or district managers. There's certainly a segment of our client base that also exposes OneView and OnePay, for that matter, to restaurant general managers, but that's on the minority side. And then really everybody else in the organization because of functionality for accounting, payroll, HR, marketing, et cetera. So throughout the rest of the company, almost everybody has access to OneView, and that's all role based. So it can be controlled who sees specific kinds of data. As far as what the benefits seen from standardized reporting, one, it is standardized, which is the first foundation of making sure everybody is working toward the same goals within the operations. Then setting expectations. One of the other questions that comes up as part of this type question many times is, do restaurant operators, do area coaches see only their areas or do they see the whole company? And the answer is it can be whichever way that you, as a key operator, prefer it to be. I, as a former operator and having seen great successes in some of our customers, eh, support and really advocate for exposing data to all area coaches see all the other areas in their brand. And it creates awareness. It creates conversation for talking about best practices or how another area coach is dealing with something. And then it also fosters competition. People want to see themselves with the better performance. It really helps with performance management and motivation as well. And then going a little bit deeper down into the benefits of the data, we do a lot of exception reporting. So we're really pointing out both kind of top performers and then also the exception reporting where you need to address stuff quickly. And so instead of finding out something at the end of the week that needs to be addressed, you can address it right away as the data is coming in. What it also really does with that real rich reporting is we're layering in. It's not just point of sale data and back of house data. And then we're layering in the voice of the customer data, the third party delivery data. So the operators are seeing a very granular level if they wish to, but they're also seeing the cause and effect of voice of the customer data. And you see how that relates to your revenue growth or your check averages, things of that nature. So it gives a lot more context to the content and not just content for the sake of content, which really helps in coaching sessions. And we also try to identify the top performers. It should be not a wall of shame in a dashboard. There should be a wall of fame there as well. We want to make sure that everybody's seeing the positives as well. Hopefully those are some answers that help with that question. One more here. What type of data do operators have to work with? What analysis beyond traditional financial metrics can help operators make better decisions? So I just listed a lot of data, that we're looking at: point of sale, back of house, bank, credit card, voice of the customer, third party, accounts payable information is available. We talked about payroll data already. Andy, what else have you seen or do you suggest in populating the reporting capabilities in Intact other than just the financial data?
So that's a great question. And it's a question that comes up often, right? Particularly when we're talking about these different dashboards and how we're thinking about deploying this, because there is obviously some overlap in the data between what is available within OneView and what OneView can send into Sage Intacct. So the question comes up, how do we, with the Sage Intacct dashboard, what do operators need to look at there versus what would they see in OneView? Ultimately, it's a similar answer in that what the integration allows is the ability to transfer that really the key, the most important operational data from the stores. And it obviously it could be point of sale data. As Bruce described, there's lots of other types of data that affect store level performance that are is available within OneView. Bringing that information into Sage Intacct in an automated way provides additional context as well on the financial side. So when we're reviewing P&Ls, having one place to go and that single source of truth for the actual true financial performance of the store, marrying together the full P&L, of course, balance sheet, general ledger, the source of truth for your accounting information, together with all of it's really as much operational data in terms of context as you want to make available, significantly streamlines that review process and provides a much richer way to understand and review numbers. Whether it's from an operations perspective, maybe moving up the organizational chart a little bit from the stores or the districts into more of a regional leader, VP of operations, head of operations type roles where we need to be able to look down to the detail, but also zoom back out to a much higher level, looking at overall brand performance by brand. And then, of course, at the ownership or executive or CFO level, being able to communicate these kinds of key performance indicators and metrics, both operational and financial, in one system and not having to go to 5 different systems or 10 different systems to pull all of this information together is really the vision and one of the key benefits.
Great. Thanks, Dan. And then the last question is, what are the integrations that I should have if I'm using OneView, OnePay, and Intact? Yeah, you and I, Andy, had a conversation earlier this week about a mutual client. We're getting all set up. And if I recall correctly, I think there are 5 or 6 we identified they should be the minimum standard. So obviously, your general ledger, sales and cash data, period ending inventory on the accounts payable side, invoice images. You should have the actual image of your invoices in Intact so you can see those when you're reviewing the general ledger detail report or other areas. Obviously, the invoice data populate the AP module, and then syncing the vendor database in Intact with the vendor database in OnePay so there's not duplicate manual entry, no errors in vendor numbers, names, et cetera. What other ones, Andy, can you think of in a standard restaurant implementation that should be added to that kind of minimum requirement or even the best practices?
Not sure if you mentioned this one specifically, but the daily sales information is pretty important. So one of the ways we get to a lot of this time savings on the accounting side is by moving to more of a daily process for how we're recording and auditing sales. And chances are you're already auditing your sales information. That's not daily, at least weekly, in terms of just auditing cash deposits and looking at credit cards and that sort of thing. But by moving to an automated system where OneView can push that daily sales information automatically into Sage Intacct, into the bank reconciliation side of things, it allows whoever's doing that auditing to basically touch the information once and save a lot of that time as far as completing the bank reconciliation. So I think a true automation behind daily sales is a must have. Granted, it's not hugely time consuming to import files, but having the technology do that work and have things automated is definitely better. 2 more points. So on the Sage Intacct side, the integrations that can push that statistical data and that operational data is huge. A lot of the options out there that can integrate sales don't support the stat data. And so then you're losing out on all that additional context, whether it's point of sale data, labor data, the different sorts of metrics that you all want to track. I think that's really important. And then from an AP perspective, I want to just quickly touch on one question as well that's related that has also come up, which is that Sage Intacct does have an AP automation feature that will suggest and automate coding. And so we've definitely seen some questions about trying to understand how this works. And this really speaks to the benefit of a true best in class tech stack, because the example that Bruce gave earlier of an approval workflow in OnePay, where you can automate approvals and be able to understand what needs to be looked at and what doesn't, that's a workflow that's specific to our industry, right? And a lot of the generalized products that are out there wouldn't understand that requirement. There's different levels of automations. That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. There's automations that push base level data, or in the case of Sage Intacct, will identify the vendor and identify the invoice date and the amount. But then that's really only going through part of the workflow, right? So the way that OnePay, just as an example, can automate the full end-to-end workflow is how you get to that full automation and really start to see the ROI and the benefit of all the time savings and the efficiencies. So long answer, but I guess my point is really understand how truly automated something is, because obviously the more automated, the better.
Good. Yeah. One more I would go back and add it. Skipped over product transfers. Yeah. Some customers do a lot more product transfer between stores than others, but that's time consuming. It creates a lot of work to keep up with. If the data is available from your point of sale and back office, should be importing those and just booking those product transfers instead of having managers go get it back or have to do some kind of manual tracking and maintenance of that. That's one that through the integrations we have with point of sale and back office and Intact, we can push over as part of a standard implementation. That's all the questions that have been submitted. If the attendees have any other questions, we'd love to answer those. And then, of course, we'll be getting this recording sent out to everybody so you can have it for future review as well. Feel free at any time to reach out to Andy or myself. The slide that's up now has our email addresses. We're easy to be reached and return calls and emails quickly. So feel free to reach out to us anytime if we can be of help. Andy, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Great turnout. Really appreciate it.